Hi, Mark Edwards here for another edition of Question and Answers with the Love the Notre Dame members. We'll get started real quick here. Ben Emery asks, Mark, what kind of game plan do you think we need to come up to maximize our strengths versus our weaknesses against Clemson? Offensively, Clemson is very, very strong up front. So, in my opinion, we're going to have to use the passing game, the short passing game specifically, as an extended running game. Their biggest weakness is their secondary. So we're going to have to expose that with our tall wide receivers, quick passing game, kind of like what USC did to us defensively early in the game. A lot of short passes to set up that running game. I may have said it in the past, but we consider those short passes an extension of the running game. We would call them long handoffs, essentially. Very safe, very efficient type of passing game. So we really need to do that early to set up the run. We still got to run the ball and remain balanced, but that's going to be really, really key. Defensively against them, you got to do what you always do against a young quarterback. You're going to have to disguise coverages to confuse him. But really what we got to do is take away one of their best threats, which is that running back. So we really got to make them one-dimensional, take away that running game. And if you do that, you're going to have a lot of pressure on that young Lawrence, that young quarterback Lawrence. Edison Tucker asks, how do you feel about our receivers making plays against Clemson's DBs? I think I just kind of covered that. That's going to be a very, very key matchup for us. We got all those tall receivers, those big, physical, and these guys can run as well. So that's going to be a very, very key matchup for us. But we got to protect up front. Once again, their defensive line is their strength. So we're going to need to protect Ian, because we saw what happened that first half of USC when we weren't protecting him, when they were out scheming us. A lot of pressure on Ian, and we weren't moving the ball. So that's going to be key. Jennifer Ostrander asks, do you have a solution for the problem of a football playoff? It seems wrong to exclude 12-0 teams from playoff chances, but not every 12-0 team has a strength of schedule to warrant a championship run. What is the solution? There is no right solution, but I posted a video in this group the other day of Mike Leach talking about the playoffs. You know, they figured it out in Pop Warner. They figured it out in high school. They figured it out in every other NCAA division other than Division I, and they figured it out in the NFL. It's not that hard. But a lot of people seem to think that the 8-team playoff is really where this should be, and that would make a lot of people happy. But there's still going to be arguments. There's a 64-team field in the NCAA basketball bracket. People still talk about who got left out. But 8 games seems like the right number. 8 teams seems like the right number for the NCAAs, Division I, FBS. So that's what I'm sticking with. Frank Tropfenbaum asks, with our previous game against Clemson being 2 years ago, I think that was 2015 actually, how much of that game plan turns over to the game plan for this year's Clemson's team? Really a very little. While Clemson still has the same coaching staff, I think they still have the same coordinators on both sides of the ball. Some of the schematic stuff will be very similar, but you game plan against specific players, and not nearly all those players are different now, if not all of them. So is there some carryover? Can you learn some stuff from that game? Yeah, maybe so, but really focusing on what the guys on this year's Clemson team is going to be doing. Oscar Tapia asked, do you see this matchup even on defense between both schools? I really do. Both teams got some All-Americans. Both teams are very, very stout up front. I actually think we have the advantage as far as the linebackers and defensive backfield goes. But up front on both sides of the ball, very, very solid. Tony LaRue, the time between regular and postseason is always a challenge. Compared to just a bowl game in December or January, how does coaching, physical, and mental fitness and game prep have to change to maintain focus for the college football playoff? The biggest thing is, like, during the regular season, you show up into training camp before the regular season in tip-top physical shape. You're at your strongest. You had your most healthy. And it's a constant physical breakdown as the season progresses. Your body breaks down. We used to call it, you used to get like towards the end of the season, you would get like a skinny fat. You wouldn't lose any weight, but you'd lose a lot of muscle, and you felt kind of soft towards the end of the year just because your body had been beaten up so badly. So during this month, this time off is a good chance to get your body healthy again, get strong again. They're going to go into the weight room, and they're going to have some workouts like they had before the season started, like in summer and during winter conditioning last year. They're going to get really, really back into good shape, which is going to be very, very key going to this game, because when you get physically feeling good again, then that's going to help you mentally as well. Julian Rosales, Clemson's Lawrence is an excellent quarterback. What would be the best defensive scheme to stop or slow him down? Once again, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. We have to make them one-dimensional, one way or another. We can't let their NFL caliber running back run all over us, because then that's going to give Lawrence just so many easy opportunities. The biggest thing, not only in defending Lawrence, because he's a freshman quarterback, but you have to get him off his spot. You have to put pressure on Lawrence. The best quarterbacks in the NFL, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, when you get pressure on them, all of a sudden they become human again. They struggle. You get them off their spot. You put a lot of pressure on them, then they can't just sit back there and pick a defense apart. If you get pressure on Lawrence, he's going to throw us the ball, and that's going to be a huge, huge difference in the game. Forrest Parker asks, Mark, what do you think about players deciding to skip their school's bowl game, assuming they are healthy and can play? It's not something I would have done, but I really am in full support of what those guys do. They go to college. One thing is you never see is somebody going to the playoffs and somebody skipping. These bowl games are enormous money makers for the schools and for the NCAA. And unless you're in the playoffs, I don't mind these kids skipping their senior bowl game to go on, get ready for the NFL, get ready for their next career, their first career. This is their livelihood. So I support those guys going out and doing whatever they got to do to, start their career off in the right way. John Pusack, and happy birthday to John, by the way. Explain why ND does not have a fullback. It breaks my heart, John. But that's the evolution of football. Back in the 80s and 90s, everybody ran a two-back offense. Fullback, and the fullback was actually used to carry the ball a lot back then, not only in college but in the pros as well. The John Riggins and Tom Rathmans of the world actually got some carries in the NFL. But with the evolution of football, you have this fun and gun, this throw it all over the field type of offenses now that are working. So until a defensive coordinator, multiple defensive coordinators figure out how to stop these offenses from throwing the ball over the field with success, you're not going to see many fullbacks in there. You still see it. The academies always have a fullback. Some of the NFL teams still have a fullback, but they're used minimally. So the biggest thing is football is cyclical. So all these innovative offensive schemes eventually get figured out. The defenders catch up with them eventually. They figure out how to stop these things, and then you got to go back to what is tried and true. So it comes back to running, blocking, being tougher than the other guy, converting the short yardage and goal line. A lot of times having a fullback or an H-back in there gives you a good opportunity to help with that. So our final question here from Frank Topfenbaum. Do you see the Clemson game, as a winnable game, or is this a game where Indy must be flawless in all three phases of the game? With that said, can you give us insight into what you think our advantages over Clemson are, and what areas we need to be concerned about. Of course, it's a winnable game. All four teams that are left are tremendous teams that are good offensively. Everybody's good defensively except Oklahoma, but they can score. They're certainly the best offensive team out there right now. Do we need to be flawless in all three phases of the game? Yes, we do. But Clemson needs to be flawless in all three phases of their game to beat us as well. There's even though Clemson's an 11.5-point favorite, they're not that much more physically dominant than we are. Quite frankly, I think our schedule and what we accomplished looks a little bit better than what they did with their schedule. Clemson got some style points versus a very, very down ACC. I want to say, but also in the four common opponents that we defeated, Clemson beat them by an average of 11 points more than we beat them. But they were all blowouts. They had the one close game against Syracuse. We had the one close game against Pitt as far as the common opponents. But, yes, Notre Dame has to play flawless in order to beat Clemson, but Clemson has to do the same thing against us, I believe. I mean, Alabama's the only team left in this foursome that can play – can make mistakes and still win a game, as evidenced by them defeating Georgia in the SEC title game with all the mistakes that they made. I've already touched on some of the advantages and disadvantages we have at Clemson. Obviously, Clemson's defensive line is outstanding, and if we allow them to put pressure on Ian Book, we're going to struggle and struggle bad. We have to defeat them by throwing the ball early, safe throws, moving the change, and then still running the ball. And if we have success with that early passing game, it's going to open up the running game down the road as well. We got to stop their running game. They have an NFL-style running back, NFL caliber running back, who's very, very good. And if he gets going on us, that's going to open things up for Lawrence. And if that happens, we're going to get run out of the gate there. So stop the running game. Pressure on Lawrence, get him off of a spot, and Notre Dame's going to do pretty darn well. So with that, go Irish.